That Wordle game you've been playing on your phone. Quantum physics enables it. The dating app you use to find a romantic partner near you has GPS tech made possible by Einstein's general theory of relativity. If you're the type of person who's excited about the future, you have to be excited about fundamental physics. No, this is not some pedantic agenda I'm peddling. You would at least want to be curious about how the applications of fundamental physics powers the present world. Today, we'll talk about the discovery claim of a room temperature superconductor called LK99. Try to understand whether it's legit, and while we're at it, comprehend the amazing business implications of a breakthrough like this. I want to ask you a question. It's a bit philosophical, but think about it. You can even pause the video for a second, okay? Do you have an innate desire to make an impact, be something bigger, a desire to do important work? I am sure in the recesses of your mind, you do. And psychologists have been talking about this for a long time. Dale Carnegie, in his book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, writes, "Humans have an innate desire to be important." Turns out this is all humans: influencers, business people, YouTubers, and of course, scientists. That's exactly what happened with the South Korean lab, headed by Suk-bae Lee and Ji-hoon Kim at the startup firm Quantum Energy Research Center in Seoul, as they claimed the discovery of a room temperature superconductor called LK99, saying that it would open a new era for mankind. They showed a test specimen comprising of copper, lead, oxygen, and phosphorus levitating above a magnet, also known as the Meissner effect. Instead of publishing in a journal, they published their findings on the archive server, which basically is a platform where scientists can report and get feedback from peers, almost like a feedback loop before publishing their research to a paper. The internet went crazy for a few days. Reddit and X blew up, and the scientific community scampered to verify the findings. Now, you might think, okay, cool, levitating objects. What's the big deal? Probably a bunch of nerds going crazy. Tony Stark in the Iron Man movies powers his suit and does all kinds of crazy things with what is called a miniaturized nuclear fusion reactor. Guess what would be one of the key ingredients in realizing that vision, even if remotely possible? Yeah, you guessed it, room temperature superconductors. Now, there's an actual superconductor technology working on this called Viper. It consists of commercially produced thin steel tapes coated with a high-temperature superconductor compound. This cable can be used to create magnetic fields of enormous strength, making fusion devices much more small. The preprint claim on LK99 says that it still has zero electrical resistance at 127 degrees Celsius, which is pretty impressive. The Viper device I talked to you about still has constraints, where it's basically yttrium barium copper oxide and needs to be cooled by supercritical liquid helium. Now, why is that? And where does the need for room temperature superconductors come from? To answer those questions, we need to try to understand how traditional superconductors work versus how the LK99 claims to work. And to understand superconductors, we need to understand electron states, phonons, quarks, bosons, positrons, and so on. Okay, that sounds overwhelming, but let's dumb them down a little. J. Bardeen, L.N. Cooper, and J.R. Schrafer came up with what is now known as the BCS theory of superconductivity, where they defined that electrons over a distance actually attract each other due to the electron-phonon interaction. Wait, but like repels like, right? So how do electrons attract each other, and how does that lead to superconductivity? Let's find out. Alright, so an atom contains a nucleus with protons and electrons. Electrons are located in different orbitals or radial layers. Gold, for example, has an electron configuration of 4f14, 5d10, and 6s1. One electron is in the 6s, or the outermost orbital, and 10 electrons in the 5d orbital. 6s contains the valence electrons, which are free to move when charged with a voltage differential and, yeah, you guessed it, generate current. Then why does sulfur, you know, the stuff that's left behind when a demon passes by in Supernatural, with the configuration 1s2, 2s2, 2p6, 3s2, 3p4, have 4 electrons in the outer shell and still not conduct? Because they form a covalent bond with other sulfur atoms, making them unavailable for the electron motion that generates electricity. Now that we've revised conductivity, let's move on to superconductivity. On's in 1911 discovered that below the critical temperature Tc of a material, the electric resistance of said material goes down to zero, i.e., superconductivity occurs. In 1957, Bardeen, Cooper, and Schrafer proposed an updated theory of superconductivity where, under critical temperature, they state that as the electrons move through the lattice of the material, they disturb the surrounding ions in the lattice due to their negative charge. This disturbance travels in the form of a vibration, creating a local region of densely packed positive ions. Single unit of this collective vibration, which results in the densely packed positive ions, is called a phonon. Now, remember, there are many electrons hovering around as the electric field is generated. One of them gets attracted to this phonon, which basically plays the role of a matchmaker. The electron indirectly attracts another electron with the help of phonon that creates this distorted region of densely packed positive ions, building up a Cooper pair. The same thing happens all over as the electron-phonon interactions create Cooper pairs, which help the electrons move through the lattice without any resistance. All of this while you're at critical temperature, of course. As the heat is turned up, the Cooper pairs are broken up as the lattice vibrations become too intense, and the phonons don't really help this time. In the case of the Viper device we talked about earlier, supercritical helium helps maintain the temperature of the superconductor, causing it to have zero electrical resistance. But it still has some size limitations. What if we didn't worry about the temperature? What if we didn't want the supercritical helium? Cooling helium to achieve superconductivity is costly and space-consuming, leading us to the search for affordable, scalable room temperature superconductivity, which brings us to the LK99. The South Korean lab stated that they made a superconductor out of lead apatite, which is basically something like this. It's what you get when you replace the calcium in your teeth with lead. Our teeth are calcium apatite, by the way. Yeah, LK99 is not even a metal, but a bunch of wires bundled together, which are one atom wide. Within this structure, lead atoms are arranged such that electrons can hop from one to the next, but only along specific lines in the crystal lattice. This is because the crystal lattice arrangement is not uniform in all directions, also known as anisotropic. Now, some of these pathways are doped as copper replaces lead. The electrons follow this path without resistance, creating a room temperature superconductor. In all other directions, the material actually acts as an insulator. Here's how a room temperature superconductor, if proven, would change everything. It would enable maglev trains, due to the Meissner effect disrupting the public transportation industry. With the engineering of speed tracks, it could also help create hovercrafts. Yeah, pretty utopian straight out of Star Wars. Both of these disrupting a trillion-dollar transportation industry. The energy grid would run at 100% efficiency, saving billions of dollars of taxpayer money. Portable, or at least smaller MRI machines could become real, as the massive supermagnets used in traditional MRI machines would no longer be needed. Particle accelerators and quantum computers would become more efficient, leading to the next generation of fundamental science discovery. I mean, it would be really cool to understand the origins of the universe. RTSCs are still a pipe dream away since there's been a big reality check on LK99. Technically, the doping of copper and lead apatite is not known to be consistent, making the specimen not achieve the Meissner effect with high reproducibility. So the specimen, even at the South Korean lab, partially levitates over the magnet. Scientists in India and China could not replicate the results of the South Korean lab. The search for one of the most sought-after discoveries is still ongoing, but in the meantime, there are awesome applications like MRI machines and compact nuclear fusion from Viper that you can enjoy and look forward to.